In today's hopefully concise video, I'm going to show you the correct way to mount a red dot optic like this Meprolite MPO Pro F on a pistol like this Palmetto State Armory Dagger full size. That's what's coming up next here on Survival on Purpose. Welcome back to Survival on Purpose. My name is Brian. Thanks for joining me for another video where, as I said, today we're going to talk about how to mount a red dot type optic like this Meprolite on a pistol like this Palmetto State Armory. But first, as always, today's words of wisdom from the Bible. Today's Bible verse, we'll call it, is very applicable. I think it's from Psalms 144, verse 1. And this is from the New King James translation today. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Seems pretty appropriate. And a big thanks to the folks at Hog Holsters for sponsoring today's video. Hog Holsters makes the most comfortable, most concealed carry pistol holster I have ever used in my entire life. I've been using one for going on 10 years ever since I learned about them. John at Hog Holsters has become a good friend of mine and a channel sponsor. And I can do nothing but highly recommend Hog Holsters. Over the years, I've had so many comments from viewers who thanked me for introducing them to Hog Holsters and agree with me that it's the best holster they've ever used. You can save 10% on your order over $30 at Hog Holsters by using the coupon code Survival on Purpose, all one word. And tell John I said hello. That's Hog Holsters, helping Americans wear guns. Okay, now, before we get started doing the actual installation of the optic and showing you that, I kind of want a little bit of rambling because you know me. First of all, I want to talk about the things you might need to do this installation. So first we'll start with the optic, obviously the red dot optic. This is a Meprolite MPO Pro F, stands for full size. This is an enclosed emitter optic, so it has a screen on front and on back. They also make open emitter optics like the one I'm wearing right now in my Hog Holsters, and it has only a screen on front. So Meprolite makes very, very high quality optics. These are not made in China. I think these pistol optics are made in the Philippines. They're extremely accurate, extremely robust. As an aside, I took this pistol right here with this Meprolite optic on it through a gun sight week-long class a few weeks ago. No issues whatsoever, except for one issue that was 100% my fault, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. Don't let me forget. So that's a really good optic. I like enclosed emitters, also, really probably more than an open emitter. I'll tell you why I chose this one in a minute, because they just keep the dust out of there. But they're also a little bigger and a little blockier. So they're both great. Like I said, I used this open emitter for a week class. I actually won a challenge coin in one competition. I also had the lowest time score in another competition. And Jordan, the guy from Meprolite, he went with me. He won the total week competition. So Meprolite did really well at Gunsight a couple weeks ago. So that being said, I think what we're going to do is take you down to the old tabletop here, give you some close-ups and where you can kind of see what we're doing, and I'll stop rambling. How about that? Okay, so as we get started here, I think I'll try to be as concise and orderly as possible. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what you're going to need to install this Meprolite optic, or pretty much any optic on a pistol. The parts and tools, materials, anything you might need. First of all, you're going to need a pistol. Then your pistol is going to need to have an optic cut on it. First thing you want to do is make sure that the pistol is unloaded. So check it visually and check it manually, physically. And then we'll take the slide off of it. It's going to be the best thing to do. It's going to make it a little easier to work with. All right, the second thing you're going to need is an optic. And this, as I said, is Meprolite MPO Pro. This is a closed emitter, and we'll take a look at that in just a minute. You're also going to need some Loctite, and they recommend the blue M243 for all the screws. And blue is basically blue Loctite is removable, a little easier. I also have some red Loctite, just as an example to show you. This is the stuff that will absolutely be very, very hard to remove if you need to ever pull that screw out. So, and then I like to have a little tray. This is a little glow-in-the-dark tray that's available on Hog Holsters website, actually, too. Something to keep all the little parts and pieces in so they don't disappear on you. Then you're going to need a couple of tools. Now, the Meprolite optic comes with a little tool here that has a screwdriver for a little flat screwdriver for adjusting the windage and elevation, but also has a little star bit. So they provide you with that. However, in the instructions, which I encourage you to read on whatever optic you've got, they recommend that you torque these screws down to 12-inch pounds. And I'll tell you about that in just a minute to do it. So I bought a torque screwdriver. This thing was around 40 bucks, I think, and it allows you to set the torque in inch pounds. There's a lot of different options available. This was just a cost-effective one that I found on Amazon. I'll put a link to this in the video description if you're interested. Many optics are going to require an adapter plate, such as this, that mounts to the pistol, like so, and then the optic mounts on top of that. There are also some are direct mount. For example, this one here, the open emitter that I have on here, it's an MPO S, I think, MPO F. It's a direct mount, so it does not need a mounting plate. And then you're going to need screws. So here are some screws that come with the. They give you four different sizes and set of screws that come with this particular optic. Then, of course, you're going to need a battery for the optic. Most optics, they give you a battery here with MeproLite. And you got a little cleaning cloth and a manual. So, like I said, read the manual. I have done so for you, so you don't have to. So, first thing you want to try to do is find whatever screws you're going to need to fasten this thing down. And we're just going to cut one and see which. Open it up and see which one looks like is the correct one. Which one threads into here? And I don't remember which size screws these are, so we're doing this just like you would have to do it at home, and just see which ones are which. Maybe I got the wrong screws. Let me try the other screws. And I'm leaving all this on camera because this might be what you have to do. You might have to do this little trial and error thing yourself to figure out which ones you need. So I just thought, you know what? Let's just be real with it. Stick it in there and see if it'll actually work. It seems to have a pretty good bit of threads on there, so I think it's catching the threads. Let's just see how far it goes through when we push it through. Okay, so you see we've got like 3 threads through there. Can you see that? Can you see it now? That should be good, so let's start over. Put that back on there. We'll put this on the screw. And it's already got some of the Loctite on it left over from the other screw, but we're going to put a little more on here. Okay, get it almost down. Then we take the other one, do the same thing. It's going to loosen up just a little bit. We don't want to get it all warped at all. We want it to kind of be evenly tight. Oh, just like you would do lug nuts on a car or vehicle. Okay, so we get them started. Just snug them kind of finger tight. Okay, there's that. Now, let's put this back over here so we don't lose it. Take the torque wrench, which I've got set at 12. It's 10 plus 2 is 12. And I've already got, this is a T10, so we're going to just go around, get them both just kind of snug, right? Just like where they're bottomed out kind of. And then a little more, trying to do it evenly. And then what you want to do is you want it to click. Okay, and you want to do it again. Make sure it's tight. Now, before we put the optic on, I'll tell you why it's so important to use a torque wrench. Because when I put this optic on this pistol the first time, I didn't read the instructions, and I didn't have a torque wrench. I didn't torque it. I just got it tight. What I thought was tight, hand tight, pretty tight. And midway through the week at gun sight, I noticed that my optic was getting loose. So took it off, Loctited it, put it back on, tightened it down with a torque wrench. I borrowed a torque wrench from somebody, and no more problems. And to MeproLite's credit, it did not lose zero when I loosened it and retightened it. So their mount is really solid because it maintained the same zero location. The next step is to do the same thing, and they don't say to torque this one, but I'm going to probably torque it. But this is the mounting clip. So the way this thing works is, on this particular one, This mounts on the bracket, and it has this little, I guess, a bump out here and a bump slot here. And you hook it on, and it has a clamp on one side. You hook it on the other side where the little slot fits, the little bump out fits, and when it comes down flush, you know you've got it. And that little bump out keeps it from moving around. Then you put this back on, like so, and that's your clamp. Put a little dab of Loctite, blue Loctite on there, because we don't want that to come loose either. Tighten it up, and we're going to put this thing also at 12 inch-pounds. Okay, so there we go. That sucker's tight, and it is mounted. The next step is going to be to put the battery in. For the battery, you need a flathead, so they provide you with that little tool here. Just in this case, you take this flathead screwdriver, loosen that up. And this you do not need to torque. I don't think there's no, really you don't need to torque this one. But you do need to open it. And so pull that out, and there's a little tray here. So this battery goes in, positive side down in the tray. So the negative side is facing up as you put this in, and then put your battery back in, your battery cover back in, and tighten the screw. And then you want to check it. In this case, you're going to hold the up button for 3 seconds. I think it turns on, and it's on now. This one has automatic brightness or manual brightness, so you can set it however you want. And then you can put your pistol back together. And what I've found, especially on these Mepro lights, it's pretty well close to zeroed when you take it out of the box. It's not going to be way off, but you do need to let it sit for about 4 hours after the Loctite, so the Loctite can cure before you fire any rounds through it and subject it to the stress of recoil. But you probably won't have to move it much. And this one has, and most of they all have it. They have an elevation, and a windage. So you can just it's clearly marked. When it says up, by the way, that means if you want your point of impact to go up, then you turn it that way. So it doesn't mean you want your sight to go up. You want where it's hitting to go up. It's just like it says. A lot of people get it backwards, but it's if you're shooting left, you want it to go right. You put it in the direction where the arrow shows right. In this case, it's counterclockwise, and as is up. Now, I'm going to try to show you the reticles on this thing because I think they're really cool. I like them a lot. And see if I can get you in camera frame with the reticle. I'm not so sure it's going to work, but we'll try. Okay, so this is a strange phenomenon with this camera because you can see the dot that it has there, and it's red. It doesn't look quite red here. It also doesn't look as big in camera as it does on screen. Like if I'm looking at it with my eyes, this thing takes up. Okay, there, you see how big that dot is there? Even though it's not in focus, that's how big it looks like. But now when I get it in focus, now it looks smaller for some reason. Don't ask me why. I'm not an optics guy or a camera guy. But you see that is a circle with a dot in the middle of it. And it is I'll tell you what the MOA is. I'll put it on screen. You can also, let's see if I can figure out how to change that. You can have just a circle. And again, it's as big as that dot was a minute ago. Just a dot, or you can have what I like is the bullseye, a circle with a dot in the middle. Something else I want to show you is, notice the sight itself has little notches on it right here. That's kind of like just a little sighting aid in case somehow the battery does or the optic does fail. You've got this sighting picture here that you can kind of put those on there. So there you go. Okay, we're going to land this plane here in just a minute, I promise, but don't leave yet. A couple of really important tips, notices, caveats, warnings, whatever you want to call it, that I got to tell you about red dots in general. But first, a big thank you again to the folks at Mepro Light for sending me this one, the one I'm carrying every day now, so I could test them and show them to you, and for taking me out to gun site to do a church defense class with Jordan from Mepro Light, and we both were using Mepro Light dots, and Jordan won the entire week-long competition. So if you've ever been to gun sites, you know that's a pretty big deal. When Chuck Norris plays dodgeball, the balls dodge him. Anyway, that being said, Mepro lights make really good sights, and they're not made in China. I think their pistol optics are made in the Philippines, but they're really well done. So that being said, what's the warning or caveat? The one thing that I'll tell you that I learned last couple weeks ago at Gunsight about using a dot, because that's the first time I'd really used one on a regular basis. I was an old school guy. I still have big dot backup sights on the one I carried to Gunsight just in case. I get it. There's pros and cons to these things, but I think they have moved out of the just a fad phase into, yep, they are absolutely here to stay, and they have some positive benefits. And for me, the positive benefit, the biggest positive benefit is, especially as your eyes get older, like mine are, and I'm wearing these progressive lenses, so it's hard for me to focus, get the focal length right, because they change their magnification as they go down. You don't have to line up anything. You don't have to line up a dot with a groove. You don't have to line up a dot with a notch. You just put the dot where you want the bullet to go, and don't jerk the trigger, and it'll go there. It's all about trigger control, right? That's what they say at Gunsight. There's the three main points of marksmanship are trigger control, and trigger control. That being said, it does make my follow-up shots a lot faster, because I don't have to line. Once I got that dot in my vision, I is there. And it doesn't matter if the dot's in the upper corner. It doesn't matter where the dot is in the screen. It doesn't have to be in the center. If it's sighted in properly, where that dot is where the bullet's going if you don't jerk the trigger. But don't think you're going to just mount an optic on your pistol, wait the 4 hours or so for the Loctite to dry, take it to the range and very carefully make sure it's zeroed in, and then put it in your holster, and you're good to go for concealed carry. I don't think so. I just don't think that's realistic. Like I said, the first main exposure I had to using a dot on a daily basis was at Gunsight a couple of weeks ago, and I did it every day for 5 days. And I was able to shoot pretty well with, like I said, I won a couple of minor competitions, but I kept struggling constantly, and it got better throughout the week. But I'm still not 100% there. But with finding that dot quickly on the very first sight picture, because that's when you need it. I mean, you got to be able to hit your target quickly. You want to be competent to be able to do that. Once I got that first one, then the dot was in the screen. It was good. But if I put it up here and I don't see the dot, like right now, I don't see it. I move my head to the dot. Point being, the only cure for that, and the solid cure for that, is reps. Just like you had to do when you're learning to shoot iron sights. Hopefully you did. You did enough reps in where you got your presentation down. When you come up, you're pretty much on target. One of the tips I learned, and I'll shut up, this is almost over, from one of the instructors at Gunsight about using this dot, is to go ahead and find your target, close your eyes, press out and present, and then open your eyes and see how close you are on target. And there you are, you're on. So if I've got a target at the corner of the screen back there, I'm going to close my eyes, present, and see where I'm at. And so I'm a little bit off. So you got to figure out what your perfect presentation is, and get used to that, and just get used to finding it. And it just takes reps. You're gonna have to go through some reps. But the good news is, you can do that with dry practice. You don't have to have ammunition to go to the range. You just practice pressing out and coming right on target. And if you do enough, it'll be second nature. And then you're ready to carry that dot. So there you go. That's it. Oh, by the way, if you're gonna carry it with a dot, nothing better than one of these Optic cut hog holsters with the little sweat shield comfort wing here. Pretty cool there. So anyway, that noise you might have just heard was the wheels hitting the runway. We're landing this sucker. I want to say thank you very much for watching Survival on Purpose. I hope this video has been helpful in giving you some tips and pointers on the correct way to mount a dot optic on a electronic optic on a pistol. And I sincerely appreciate your support over the years. Remember, survival's not an accident, so be prepared. I'll see you next time.